In today's video I'm going to talk about 7 things that I wish I'd known before I started dual sport and ADV riding. And this video is going to be aimed obviously at beginners, and so if you're thinking about getting into dual sport riding but you watch all the videos and stuff and you think, oh my god, I can never do that, I only ride on the road, then this video is definitely going to be for you. So the first thing I would say is don't pay attention to all the marketing. You know, when you see like KTM adverts and Chris Birch is absolutely destroying a KTM 890R Adventure off-road. Not everyone rides like that, and you don't have to be able to ride like that to be off-road riding, to be dual sport riding. Part of the fun of dual sport and off-road riding is this adventure side of it, is you can go anywhere, and that for me is just as valid as pulling wheelies, doing really extreme enduro type stuff, and being able to, do amazing stunts and amazing riding on these high-end heavy bikes. Most people can't ride like that. I can't ride like that, and most people I think watching this channel probably can't ride like that. So don't let all that marketing stuff put you off. I know it's aspirational and it's amazing to watch, and it is. It's incredible to watch someone like Chris Birch or Paul Tarras and what they do with those big adventure bikes. But we can have just as much fun going on little off-road trails and tracks, the same sort of stuff that you find in my videos, and it's just as valid. When I went up and did some riding on a WR450R up in Cebu, and I did some harder tracks and trails, I actually realized that I don't particularly enjoy that, because now for those that do love it, that's fine, do it, but that's not what I enjoy, and it doesn't have to be what you enjoy. So don't let it put you off. As long as you get that feeling of adventure, as long as you go on the tracks and trails when you want to, then you are dual sport riding and you are off-road riding. And for me, that's just as valid and actually just as fun as doing hard enduro, motocross, anything else. Dual sport riding is about being able to go to places and not having to stop where the tarmac ends. The next thing I'd say about dual sport riding, and what you quite often see, and you see it with loads of things, I'm a photographer and you see it with photographers as well, is that you have to have all the latest gear, and I just don't think that's necessary. I think you pick up a cheap dual sport bike, or even use the bike you're using as long as it's not too heavy, and just have a go with your street gear on. The street gear is protective enough for the most part. You've got to have some abrasion resistance, you've got to have some impact resistance, so elbow pads, knee pads, shoulder pads. I have back pads in as well, I have some armor on my hips. But if you have good riding gear from riding bikes on the road, then to start with, that is more than good enough. If you look back at my first dual sport type videos, I'm wearing an Alpinestars street jacket, a TGP Air I think it is. I'm wearing my Alpinestars SMX1 Air boots, same with the gloves, same with the helmet. I didn't have a peak on my helmet. I had a HJC R470 helmet. All those are street riding items. It's all street riding gear, and it didn't hold me back. And I just wanted to go out and test the waters and see whether is this the type of riding that I want to do more of, and if it is, then I'll start to invest the money. Now there's one caveat to this point that I think I didn't realize when I started riding dual sport, and I think it's a really important one. It's, if you are going to buy any new gear to supplement your street gear, change those boots out. I couldn't believe how flexible my SMX Air or SMX1 Alpinestar boots were compared to off-road boots. My off-road boots, they're not particularly expensive, they're $150 O'Neill's, but man are they stiff compared to the street boots. Most of the injuries that occur when you're off-road riding is going to be very slow speed falls, possibly getting your leg trapped under the bike, twisting your ankle, sort of landing on uneven terrain, those kind of slow speed injuries. But your ankle protection is really, really important. You might be dabbing your foot down to keep balance and you get your foot stuck or clip it. These O'Neill boots have saved my feet a couple of times already, and if I'd have been wearing my Alpinestars, I know I'd have picked up injuries. Maybe not serious, but little niggles and stuff. If you are going to invest in some gear when you're first starting out on dual sport or adventure riding, get those more solid boots. They just stop your ankle flexing. They provide much more firm and stable support and protection. And when you first get them, they are gonna feel weird. I mean, I spent like a week walking around them in my house just going, oh my god, I feel like I'm an astronaut, I'm in space boots or something. But you get used to them, and now my feet feel kind of naked without them on. And you'll initially find that shifting gears is harder, you know, everything's not in the same place, etc. You know, trying to get your foot under the pedal to shift up. Initially you think, god, that's really difficult, but after riding and wearing them for a little bit, I promise you'll get used to it, and the protection they offer will be well worth it. So if you're watching this video, and if you've watched a few of my other videos, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe. If I look at my stats, 80% of people are not subscribed to my channel, even though there's lots of people watching it. So if you enjoy this kind of content, riding, dual sport riding, adventure bike riding here in the Philippines, then please subscribe, or at least consider subscribing and hitting the notifications bell. It'll really help out the channel. It motivates me to provide more videos, and obviously it means that the videos themselves do better once I release them. So hit that notifications bell, subscribe, like the video, comment, share it with your friends. I'd really appreciate it. There's plenty more to come, and it's dead easy to do. I mean, the reason I love dual sport riding and adventure riding is I use it as an excuse to see places, like to see these beautiful mountains, to get the view of the sea over there. When you first start riding dual sport or adventure bikes, it freaks you out when you get on the slippery stuff. When we're riding on road, everything we do is based on traction. We lean into the corners, we want our wheels to be solid underneath us, and that is just not the case on this kind of stuff. So this kind of surface here, the back end is going to slip, it's going to kick out, and you've really got to stop worrying about things that you don't need to worry about. So in this case, you know, the back wheel is going to slide around, it's going to feel squirrely, it's going to snake. You've got to learn to relax on this kind of surface and realize that if you've got knobby tires on, or adventure tires like a 50/50, they are going to squirrel about sometimes, and that's okay. But you've just got to get yourself comfortable with that feeling of the back end being loose. Then the tires are not going to suddenly give way on you. You know what your tires are doing is they're sliding around and they're trying to find the traction, and when they find the traction, as long as you're in the correct position on the bike, what will happen is the bike will just continue. It will find the traction, dig in and go again. When I first started riding, every little slide, every little movement had me tensing up and getting nervous, and it really doesn't help. The idea on the bike is to try and stay fairly relaxed, or try and keep your arms as relaxed as possible. I also used to worry that on this surface, you know, what can the bike actually go over? Can this bike go over big rocks? Is it going to puncture my tire? Am I going to knock the tire off the rim? You know, things like this. And it's just, these bikes are built for it. This is what it's built for, is just to slide around on this sort of stuff, find traction, absorb the bumps, absorb all the crap on the road, and get you to where you need to go. The bike is designed to keep going. The bike will do the road. It's just up to us to guide it there, really. Talk about dual sport riding. There, the back wheel is snaking away from me there at the back, but as long as I keep on the power, keep my balance, it found traction again and I kept going. There, it's just jumped to the right. I just keep going. And then at the end of it, you get to go to beautiful locations like this, which you cannot do if you're a street rider. I don't know whether you're going to see that on here, but there is just rain dropping right in the middle of the sea here. Nice and clear, well, relatively, and that is a ton of rain. And up there, so we might have to ride off to some different tracks in a minute and head back in the other direction. But I mean, you can't beat this. This kind of bike, this dual sport kind of bike, is just, it's just fantastic. The next thing I'd say is, as much as you don't need to worry about, you know, certain things, there are other things, other concerns that you should have, and other things that you should consider and be not worried about, but at least be aware of them. And one of those is the weight of your bike. So it's very easy, picking up on my marketing point, to fall for all that marketing stuff, you know, and see these guys who are amazing riders, probably been riding since they were 5 years old, doing unbelievable stuff off-road on big heavy adventure bikes. And honestly, a lot of us will never get there to that point, but we can still enjoy our bikes. But when you're first starting out on dual sport, I just think that starting out on a lighter bike, something like this CRF 300L, or a light dirt bike, or a KLX 300 or something like that, is brilliant in several ways. One is that it doesn't take so much to tame the bike, but also it's the lightweight nature of the bike. It is inevitable that you are going to drop a bike when you're going off-road like this. A lot of the time it's not going to be some sort of high-speed crash. It's going to be you dropped it because you lost your balance and the ground was uneven and you put your foot down and you couldn't hold the bike. So having a lighter bike just means it's easier to pick it up all day. You know, when you got to pick it up, you can manage it on your own. You know, if you can't pick the bike up on your own, then to me, I don't want to take it to places that I'm not sure I can ride. Whereas this one, I can take it to places I'm not sure I can ride because I could take that chance. I can pick it up. It's also less power. It's more manageable. The power, when you're going to put the power down and you're unsure of your traction, you know, it's much more manageable to have this kind of power level than something that's capable of flipping you off the back, or just, you know, absolutely ripping shreds out of all the tracks. You know, having this amount of power is plenty to have fun with, but is manageable for most people. You know, do you want to be learning on a £20,000, $20,000, $25,000 250 kilo adventure bike? I just don't, for me that's no fun. I've felt the weight of those bikes, I've rode those bikes, and on something like this it's not fun. You're going to be going proper tiptoe speeds. So starting out on a nice lightweight bike is a great idea. So you should worry about the weight of your bike, and that's why I always think that starting out on a lightweight bike is the best thing, because it's just going to make it, the whole learning process, so much easier. You know, even the fact that you can drop it and pick it up multiple times in a day compared to having to pick up a GS or something like that, just means you're going to be able to keep going longer. If you can keep going longer without being as tired, you're going to be able to learn more. As soon as you're exhausted, you're not going to learn, because you're just going to think, I just want to go home. The next point I'd make, and I think for me, this is not just about dual sports and off-road, this is about motorbikes in general and life in general, is don't try and keep up with the Joneses. You know, just because you see someone else riding a GS on this track doesn't mean you have to ride a GS on this track, doesn't mean you have to buy a GS, doesn't mean you have to buy the coolest, most popular bike going. You know, you don't have to spend the most money. Just because someone in your group is riding at 70 kilometers an hour on this stuff and flying over whoops and skipping over the blooming ruts, it doesn't mean you have to. Never ever ride at a speed faster than you're comfortable going at. It's just simple. I'm gonna have to go across here, because you're out for enjoyment, you're not out for keeping up with your mates. The worst thing you can do when you're riding bikes is trying to keep up with your mates. It's like asking for trouble. So go at the pace you're comfortable with, go on tracks and roads that you're comfortable with. I'm gonna have to go in the ruts there. and you'll enjoy your riding much more, and you'll develop because you're not spending all your time trying to keep up with someone who's faster than you. When I first started riding off-road and dual sports, I just had this image that it had to be about, you know, if you're going off-road, you are absolutely flying, you're jumping everything, you're wheel spinning, you're power sliding. And dual sport and adventure riding can be that, and if you're at that level, brilliant. But if you're not, it's not any less valid. You're still dual sport riding, you're still adventure riding, and as long as you're enjoying it and you're doing the rides you want to do, I think that's all that matters at the end of the day. Now, having said that, one of my final points would be this, is start off the right way. So a lot of us street bike riders, we have some really bad habits that really don't cross over into off-road riding. Things like leaning into corners, okay? It just doesn't work with off-road riding. There are a lot of things with off-road riding that are very, very different to on-road riding. And so I would start off the right way by going and getting some training. Going and getting some basic training in off-road. How to ride the bike, how to pick up your bike. Like him. He's had off-road training. Now, make sure you are super comfortable with the controls, so you don't even have to think about that. And then read up on it, get some of the theory in your head, and then go and put it into practice with a bit of training. It will just set you up the right way, and it's money well invested compared to buying a new bike, or compared to, you know, buying more gear or whatever it is. So the right kind of training will just set you up. Even simple things, for me, I could just have someone look at me and say, right, you're just putting too much weight on your wrists, or, you know, you need to lean out more, or whatever it was. Body position is incredibly important off-road, and I had someone do that for me, and it has made a difference in terms of how comfortable I am off-road, and also how confident I am off-road now. Even if you don't have access to proper training, have a look on YouTube. Guys like Chris Birch post videos on YouTube. He also has a brilliant training series as well, which goes through the whole dirt bike and adventure bike riding genre, and really gives you all the lessons you need to really advance. And then it's just a case of going out and practicing. So it's really, really worth it. I have done the Chris Birch off-road training online course. I haven't practiced it all yet, but it helps, you know. Even just the idea that you know what you're supposed to be doing is helpful. The theory, you know, when you're going into a corner and panicking because the back end's loose, you know in theory what to do, so you can at least try to put it into practice to lessen your chances of having an off, basically. And finally, my final point with dual sport and adventure riding, and this is quite a big one, is get comfortable as early as you can in your riding. Get comfortable standing up riding, and there's several reasons for this. The main reason is that the bike handles better off-road when you're standing. So you think, when you're sitting on your seat, all your weight is on the seat. It's static weight on the seat. It's static weight on the seat. When the bike hits a bump, all of your weight is being bounced up and down on the shock. It totally affects the handling of the bike. If you're standing up on your pegs, you've got your ankles, you've got your knees, you've got your hips, then you also have your elbows and shoulders as pivot points, as extra shock absorbers almost. The bike really handles so much better. It absorbs all the little bumps and everything better. When you're riding trails and you're standing up, you can also see further ahead, so it's easier to pick your line. Standing up also helps you to be comfortable for longer. It helps with your endurance because you could switch comfortably between standing and sitting. Now, I can tell you, when I first tried this standing up riding, and I'm not talking about just having a quick go on the roads, which I've done before, but trying to stand up and actually ride stuff off-road, I found it quite difficult at first, because everything you know is sitting down. Everything I know is sitting down. You know, I know the position of the levers, how I shift the gears, the brake pedal, where everything is. I know it all from sitting down. And transitioning to standing up, I felt like I was always fighting a battle of balance. Trying to balance, I had far too much weight on my arms and my wrists. It was uncomfortable, it was tiring. It was very, very difficult to get used to. But with some practice, With some practice and a bit of tuition, as in my earlier point, you'll find it starts to feel natural. It starts to feel better. The bike starts to feel better. Everything on the bike suddenly clicks and works a little bit better. You'll notice that you're skipping over bumps that when you're sitting down they feel like big hits, but when you're standing up you don't feel anything. You know, when I was trying to change gear standing up with my motocross boots on before, my god, I felt like my weight was going to the right. I was getting off balance. I couldn't get my foot in place. With practice, it feels just as comfortable as riding sitting down. So find a little flat area or something and practice standing up. Do it early on and you'll find that your bike is so much better off-road because of it. Okay guys, that is pretty much the video today. It's just a quick one. I am taking the CF Moto 450 MT up to Cebu in 2 days time for its first service. So that'll be an oil and filter change and a quick checkup. Everything's going okay with that bike so far. Hopefully it will continue to do so. I'm still tweaking the suspension settings to my liking, and I'll be taking that out for another ride later this week, and we'll see how those suspension settings are doing. Once that CF Moto has done its first service, I'm planning on that central traverse through the mountains of Cebu, and that's going to be an epic ride. Yeah, we're in a race against time. Get home before it chucks it down with a bit of monsoon. Ha 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 ha.